You for tuning in to Real STL News. This is your brother Charles Abdul-Wali. We are live here today. I have a very illustrious guest, none other than Dr. Art McCoy, the real McCoy.
Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. And how are you doing today?
It's great to be with you. Always blessed. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good today. And Dr. McCoy, I really thank you for coming on here to Real STL News to take some time out today with the people of St. Louis. And Dr. McCoy, I found it quite interesting in doing my research of you. So you were a superintendent in two districts, most recently in Jennings, and it says at the age of 16, you were educating educators and students on peer mediation procedures. As a 16-year-old, they are out chasing girls. You chasing education. How did that come about?
That's a great question. When I was in high school, my sophomore year, the Rodney King situation occurred from LA. It swept across the nation with letting black people know that there were issues in the land. We always know that there are issues we have to deal with. And right at that time in St. Louis, the DSEG program was threatening to be closed or ended. And I was attending, I had just left Riverview Garden School District, and I was attending Lafayette High School in the Rockwood School District where I graduated from.
Yes, sir.
And there were walkouts at that time because of the system ending black children from being able to go to schools that were suburban schools that were from the city of St. Louis. So that was in the air, in the school, and everywhere. And it led to unrest, civil unrest in the schools where white kids, black kids were fighting, arguing, punching, kicking. And the adults couldn't deal with it. They couldn't handle it. They didn't have much of
Yes,
a
sir.
tool or a technique to deal with it. And so, the principal gave me permission to skip skip class to go to every lunch period and
Oh,
begin
wow.
to mediate kids to solve conflicts as a 16-year-old, and it was successful. And it started the Committee of 520 that still exists today at Lafayette High School more than 20 years later. But ultimately, it led to me teaching teachers and counselors how to do peer mediation. I went to Truman University as a 16-year-old teaching counselors getting their master's degree on how to do peer mediation in Rockwood, in Parkway, in other schools here locally, but at the university. And from there, the principal allowed me to speak to Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 11. He actually said avoid some channels because they don't give you fair play, but ultimately just let them know the truth. And that's when I found my voice, that I was to be someone that helped influence young people and adults and to be enlightened, empowered, and engaged. That's how it started.
So they say about the age of 19, you were reported as the youngest certified teacher in the state of Missouri.
That's correct. I was on a mission and focused to be all I could be. I had introduced myself to a program called Inroads because it wasn't brought to me by staff, and because I saw some older students doing it, went into that, and they said I should be either an engineer or a actuary. But ultimately, I started taking classes in college from WashU at the age of 16 after my junior year was done, and then 17, and I chose to become an educator. And ultimately, really, I got a math degree and got the job as an actuary in Chicago and quit on the first day when the job task
Yes, sir.
was to determine how much a human life was worth, and the price of a black life at that time was worth the price of a Toyota in insurance terms. In your mortuary tables, black male my same age, so forth, in typical standards. And I said, no, I'm on the wrong side of this equation. I need to go back to where I came from and be on the education side, teaching mathematics as opposed to using mathematics to put values on life like an actuary does. And that's when my teaching career began. Dan Edwards said when I graduated from high school early, he said, if you ever need a job, call me and I would love to hire you. I called him, he hired me, and I became a 19-year-old certified math high school teacher, the youngest in the state of Missouri. I was an 18-year-old certified substitute teacher.
Wow.
So I finished my bachelor's degree in about 2 years. a year and a half. My transcript from high school says June 95 graduate, May, June, and it says December 96 graduate from college. So a year and a half on paper, but I was doing some of it while I was in high school. And so none of that means anything unless you use it. So it's cool to get a degree early, go fast, be the youngest, but can you be the best at what you do?
Sir.
You know, to be the first is okay, to be the only is okay, but are you the best? Are you contributing? Greatness should be defined by how grateful people are because of you and because of what you've done and given. So it didn't matter to me what I was doing fast. What mattered is what I was doing well for our people. That's why I went to be a teacher.
Yes, sir. So in 2010, you entered into the role of superintendent for the Ferguson Florissant School District.
Yes.
What was your plan as you came into that role?
Great question. Well, first, you know, let's go back before that, having been a principal at 22 and then over a DSEG program and executive director and assistant superintendent of Rockwood at 28, I made a choice at 28 when Barack Obama became the president. I said to myself, can I be the superintendent of Rockwood, the all-white 22,000 student school district, being an assistant sup? And the answer that I arrived to was it had never happened and it still hasn't happened. And if I can't be a superintendent of this system, then I need to go to where my people are and where more possibility is for me to be a superintendent. So I left Rockwood in 2008 and went to Ferguson Florissant as the first male assistant superintendent of secondary education. And in 2008 to 2009, the board was so happy to see my work as the assistant superintendent of secondary education that they gave me a 3-year contract. Now, as an assistant sup, there are no assistant sups with a 3-year contract. There are many superintendents that don't have 3 years, they got a 2-year. But they said, we want to keep you, we want to grow you, we see a future in you here, and so forth. So in 2008 to 2010, I was on a multi-year contract as the heir apparent superintendent of the head superintendent of that district. And by December 2010, I became the first African-American superintendent of Ferguson Florissant School District in the history of the state of Missouri, and at age 33. So I had ageism being the youngest at 33, and I also had race impacting being the first black, and I also had the fact that I'm a very person who loves our people. So I'm very pro-economics, pro-empowerment, pro-enlightenment, and engagement of the disenfranchised. And so our mission was planning to be, but it was from day one, 3 E's: equity for all, high achievement through enlightenment, empowerment, and engagement for all, and particularly those who were marginalized and not ahead. And so being that district was about 80% African American, 20% Caucasian for the most part, and a little bit of some other in between there, like a small Hispanic population. The bottom line was those who were being educated in the district didn't necessarily represent the residents of the geographic of the district, because Florissant is not 80% African American. It's not 80%. Ferguson isn't even 80% African American. Ferguson is more like 55% to 60% African American, because you got Old Town and the railroad tracks and the sundown town. Berkeley is 80% African American. Cool Valley was barely that. So the bottom line is those that were in the school wasn't necessarily representative of those in the region. But I came as a leader for all, making sure that I was the embodiment of equity. And we did that. We accomplished the goal of equity by my presence, but also by my leadership. Highest graduation classes, highest amount of students who were in AP classes at that time, and lowest amount of suspensions out of school, which was a major issue at that time. Ferguson Florissant, by an audit that was done by Susan Monty, had the most suspensions in the state of Missouri prior to my leadership, and I was able to decrease that so that it wasn't. I mean, I remember the numbers. It had over 14,000 suspensions, and it had less students than it did suspensions. Whereas other school districts like the city of St. Louis, which had almost 10,000 more students, had only had just a fewer amount of suspensions than that. It was comparable. So there was a disproportionality to it that we brought in check. That was my mission. We did it, and it came at a price, but ultimately that price is always worth it when you know your purpose. It propels you to ultimately your character and your destiny.
So being the youngest and being the first African American in that role.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel any pressure? Was pressure put on you? Did you feel like your colleagues did not look at you as an equal in that particular role?
I feel like there's always pressure when you want to stand for truth and stand for right. And in America, when you're standing for who you truly are, the beautiful, bold, black, brilliant, boundless woman or man that you are, there is pressure to say, no, you're less than that.
Right.
There's oppression, there's systemic oppression, and then there's just depression, psychological. But ultimately, let's be honest, power only concedes or gives up to a more powerful power.
Exactly.
So, yeah, there's pressure, but I had support of staff, support of students, and support of the beloved community.
Yes, sir. So, you stepped down in 2014 from the Ferguson Florissant role. There was a district board meeting that voted to place you on administrative leave. The reason was never disclosed. Can you kind of touch on what that board talked about? What was the reason for you stepping down?
It would be my pleasure. This is something I wear as a badge of honor. It's a badge of honor to do something so significant,
yes, sir,
that someone knows who you are and they say either we love it or you got to go. And in this instance, so much achievement had occurred and focus in that time, in 2013, on educating all kids at high levels, including black and brown kids.
Yes, sir.
That the region created something called the transfer law that judges and legislators said you need to follow this law that's been in the books since the 1980s. And because we had been successful with all kids, when the transfer law was enforced by Judge Vinson that it had to occur for all county districts to have any kid from a failing district or school go to a successful school, we were the district, and I was the superintendent that rolled out the red carpet saying, come on, students from any failing district. At that time, it was Riverview and Normandy,
right,
and the city had just got their accreditation. And we enrolled the largest amount of students from Normandy and Riverview into Ferguson Florissant, more than anyone else other than Francis Howell, which Normandy chose Francis Howell to give busing to back and forth. Francis Howell had 650, Ferguson Florissant had 600. So even with that, we were still very, very close. And within the first 3 months, students left Francis Howell because it was a culture shock, and ultimately they did not leave us. But the issue was rolling out the red carpet to people who didn't necessarily live there, or people who the system of Ferguson Florissant wasn't necessarily created for. It poses the question, well, should we build a wall to stop this from happening?
Yes, sir.
Or should we build a bridge to encourage this equity of educational excellence in happening? And in the end, I stood for the bridge method, and the powers that be stood for the wall method, that we will only comply if forced to, or really not willingly want to comply and make this something that's pleasant because really we don't believe that it's right. And so in the end, now that we're 7 years removed from it or more, people understand that if you don't do for the least among them, then the least among you may shoot or burn or do something to themselves,
yes, sir,
or others. And so let's lift up the least so that the most can have some more and the least can have something. That's a common thought now by more people, but then it wasn't. So the letter that the board sent to the entire staff and families said the issue, there is a difference of focus and philosophy and no wrongdoing. That was the letter that went out internally. And then the largest board meeting in the history of Missouri occurred that next week after the community read that and said, this ain't right. What's your philosophy? Because his philosophy is equity, which means this, meeting the needs at the speed of the need. Equity is what love looks like in public amongst strangers. That was it. Sir. So 2,000 people showed up in McCloy, Norfolk to say 116 of them said one after one after the one, this is what we need, not what we want to resist. And that's why I wear that moment as a badge of honor for standing for something, living for something, so you don't fall for just anything.
Yes, sir. So it says from 2014 to 2016, you served as superintendent in residence, chief academic officer of the Mind Research Institute in Base 11, which helped you focus on thousands of high potential low income students achieve post-secondary programs, partnering universities, including the California Institute of Technology, University of Southern California, University of California, Irvine, MIT, and community colleges nationwide. So those are some big and prestigious colleges. How are you getting those particular facilities and universities to act on one accord?
Yeah, it's a great question.
And for low income children.
That's right. Over 1 million across the nation. So I went from Ferguson and taking a stand and standing for equity to having places like MIT, Caltech, and others in Harvard say,
right,
that's the stuff. That's what people need. And so the people with that spirit chose to connect and bridge with me, and that led me to Irvine and to Newport and so forth to lead the charge to literally give people what we call the victory circle.
Yes, sir.
And that is the empowerment of money, people, and resources to have victory over their life as an entrepreneur with micro enterprises, or getting a college STEM degree and then immediately a paid internship when they're working on that degree. So you either get an enterprise or degree and an apprenticeship where you get some money as you're getting that degree. That's what we call the victory circle. And
yes,
we
sir.
went around helping over 1 million people to be a part of that circle of victory. And then we did some fab labs, MIT fab labs,
right,
where we take essentially Boeing technology and put it in community colleges across the United States and at leading universities to
wow,
teach Black, brown, Latino, Asian, and underrepresented whites, poor whites, and others how to do digital fabrication of metal, wood through laser beam technology and cutting. So it became education space during the day and business space at night that business owners can rent out to actually do 3D printing, coding, and more for their own business enterprise. And this was the launch pad for economic empowerment for people. But that's the vision and the thinking that came out of the West Coast, which is why I went to Irvine, but then to do that across the nation from coast to coast.
That is amazing.
That's
very amazing. So now we're in February 2016. You're named the superintendent of the Jennings School District. Now, under your leadership, you have multiple graduating classes achieving, now get this, it's a 100% graduation, yes, career and college placement, and you were featured on Fox, CNN, and ABC Primetime.
Yes,
with that program, getting the children from high school to being college ready, that's a tremendous transition.
Huge.
It's different when you go to college because they're not checking your name.
That's right.
If you're not there, the teacher is just continuing on with the class.
That's right.
What did you put together to get the students ready for the high school to college transition?
That's a great question. So first, it really dovetails to the work that I was just speaking about in California that we were doing coast to coast. Once you are able to really help a child know that you have a purpose in life, right, and you can choose that purpose or profession or path, you can go to a third grader and ask third graders across the country, which I've done, and in Jennings and Ferguson and other places.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a loved one in jail? So let's say, for instance, over 90% of the hands go up. Do you have a brother, sister, mother, father, granddad, so forth? Let me tell you how you can be a jail cell closer. Third grade test scores are predicted how many jail cells to build in Florida, Texas,
right,
and fourth grade in other states, Arizona, and so forth. You become a jail cell closer by being proficient in reading at third grade. So now I'm not telling you to read so you can read well. I'm telling you to read so you can be a social justice reconstructor of society, because a cell will not be built for you today or for your loved one because you are proficient. That's the key of personal enlightenment and writing a personal plan that includes who are you, where are you going, what help do you need to get there, and then the beloved community will wrap around you. what we have today in schools across America is a lot of information without it being any inspiration, insight as to who am I, where am I going, what do I need, why am I doing this?
Yes, sir.
So that even today during COVID, you can reopen schools, but kids be like, why? I can do it at 7:10 p.m. and get paid during the day by Amazon or somebody and get $10, $12 an hour and still get this done because I don't see the relevance of coming to see you, because the most important education is self-education. Know thyself. It's on the temples in Africa. It's on the pyramids in Africa. It's saying know thyself. Do you know? And then after you know yourself, Ubuntu. I am because we are. So know who we are. That's the beloved community.
Yes, sir.
That's the key piece that got students in the system that I came back to be engaged, to say 100% of us will write a plan for ourselves because we want to know who we are. We want to stretch who we are. 100% of us will get behind you going to a career pathway so that every kid can get a paid internship before they graduate from high school. Anybody who claims to be a supporter and friend of Dr. McCoy, any business person, you're a friend if you open 10 jobs, 100 jobs, 30 jobs at Emerson, 10 jobs at Worldwide, MasterCard, 10 jobs. These are things that they did.
Yes, sir.
This is what has happened. I'm not saying beliefs and theories.
Right.
For the past 6 years, MasterCard said 30 positions. Here you go, $15 an hour. Alberici said $25 an hour is what we will pay your 17-year-old. $25 an hour.
That's some good money now.
That's some good money now.
Now.
Neihaus Construction said we will give them $20 an hour plus $1,000 in tools plus benefits, and we will stick with them the whole way through right now. And so then I said, all right, now y'all the people we want. So what did we do after that? See, we made sure we backwards engineered the school career and curriculum so that it had that stuff so that you can be able to do those jobs. So we have pharmacy technicians licenses that we give. We have OSHA license, OSHA 10 and 15. We have power tools, forklifting for the construction industry. We have Microsoft, Cisco certifications, CompTIA A+ for IT and technology. So the technology companies are like, okay, we'll hire you because your 17-year-old has a Cisco CCENT certification, which gives you $60,000 a year job. There was a kid that had that at 17, and we had to convince him, don't take that $60,000 a year job at 17, 18. Stay in school, finish, and get that full ride to Chicago Institute of Technology, which is what he did. And I said, you can multiply that times 5, you're making $300,000 and not have to be somebody else's worker. So but that's empowerment.
Yes, sir.
Personal plan, empowering network of making sure the people with the money and the positions and leadership make that pathway so that we can be in that leadership. Not the entry level, but the whole level, the C-suite. And that gets it done. But I'll end by saying there is no I in success. People talk about there's no I in team, but there are leaders who got big heads out there. And there's an I in that team because the T is 2 I's put together and they got their I all in that. But in my world, I can't take credit for that. No, it was the whole community, the teachers, the principals, the board members, those parents that said, get up, go on back and do twice the credit hours, twice the time, go to school in the summer so you can be done with high school at your 11th grade year, which is what I did at Lafayette as one person. Right. But that's what our whole system did. So we got 60, 70, 300 kids done with high school by the time they're 16. So junior year, senior year is all college or all career skills working. So after a year or two of that, you already got 60 grand in your pocket because we paid for it for 2 years of college. Wow. Or you got experience at MasterCard, Worldwide, or Alberici, or Neihaus Construction 2 years. So you're a journeywoman by 18, meaning you're making 65 grand and you got enough skills to build a house, either for yourself as a contractor, or for somebody else. That's the plan, and that's what's going to be education for the next 10 years. It's going to be reformed, reconstructed, and I'm still a major player in that. Retiring from the position, but not from the mission.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I mean, I'm reading, like I said, I'm doing the study and reading up on you, and I'm like, man, this is interesting. The most interesting man in America is sitting right here now. So it's saying you served as in breaking the monopoly of mediocrity leader for the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and national change maker of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Institute for a Competitive Workforce.
Yes, sir.
And so they say you advise U.S. legislatures and Washington, D.C. on opportunity zones and for the U.S. Tax Reform Bill 2017
Yes.
and the HEROES Act of 2020. Now, I did a little research on the HEROES Act.
Yes.
So that stands for the Health and Economic Recovery Omnibus Emergency Solutions Act.
That's right.
That proposed legislation acting as a $3 trillion stimulus package in response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, sir.
How did you get involved in that?
I want to give it straight to your people and to all the people watching. The best way to say it is, while everybody was hiding or being in their house for the most part during the pandemic because of COVID-19 being a threat to your life,
Yes, sir.
some people limited their liberties in order to lengthen their life. They went into their house and they stayed inside. But many of us and many people of purpose and justice, we limited our lives and the safety of our lives to lengthen our liberties, because after we saw George Floyd and the knee on that neck, we said, to heck with staying in our house, we're going to march.
Yes.
So what I tell people is, let's not settle for small change, either dollar, like change in your pocket, or change in the sense of politically.
Yes.
We need big bills.
Right.
Don't settle for small change. We need big
Think
bills.
big.
Think big.
Think big.
We need big bills in the billions, $3 trillion. We need big bills in the legislation. Now, how did I get to help write it at the U.S. level?
Yes, sir.
It took work since 2010 when I was working with legislators on being pro options for people and writing legislation about ending issues that really marginalize people at the House in Missouri. So I worked with people like Tashara Jones on bills that she got passed, like a charter school bill at that time for the city of St. Louis. I worked with people like even Republicans like Stephen Cookson and Rick String, who have their set of issues, but I was the David or the prophet that comes and says, these are your issues and you need to take this stuff out. And if you take this stuff out, then it at least help us for what we want.
The voice of reason.
That's right, the voice
Yes,
of
sir.
reason. So when they got to know me, they're like, okay, we on the Republican side, okay,
Yeah.
there's a person that will tell us the truth and tell us something, and we respect him, and it's well thought out, and he can write it, he can speak it, and he can then do it to show the proof of concept. So then those individuals make recommendations to have, let's have Senator Talent or Senator Roy Blunt or others. Roy Blunt, who can I get from the African American community that can be truthful, straight, and not sell out? Well, who else? The person that didn't sell out because he stood enough to have a whole place say, no, that's a little too much. You got to do it somewhere else. Well, I'm not going to sell out for my principles, so they invited me to come. And I have to be honest, anything with some of the people that we're talking about that's like, let's say, the Trump administration or others,
Yes, sir.
my first answer is, why me? Why do you want me to come talk to you? I don't need you, and you don't necessarily need me, but you want to use me? It took several months of
Yes,
prayer and deliberation,
Right.
and then what are you going to literally change if I come say to you what
Exactly.
you need to hear? And then after 3 months of that, and doubling down, what does that mean? It means having billionaires and multimillionaires say, yeah, Art's not just speaking out of his mouth for himself, but money is talking too as he's talking to you. That's doubling down.
Yeah.
So when you get people like Dave Stewart or Michael Nodoff and others that are like, yeah, we're with that too. We want inclusive prosperity for blacks and others and safety and more. Then that'll make people on the Republican side say, okay, we got to do what is being said here. Otherwise, it's not. There's going to be hell to pay in the grassroots, and there's going to be money to pay at the ceiling tops, the C-suite. So from the streets to the C-suites, when that kind of alignment occurs, and I'm humbled to have presence from the streets to the C-suites where I can speak and be with and be my authentic self, and that's when they're like, come write this, come be a part of creating this, put what should be in it,
Yes, sir.
take the bad out of it. That's what I did in 2017 with even the opportunity zones. It was going to be something that had nothing in it for any communities of color, for people to actually have something. Now it's written so difficultly that it's still hard to pull off. But
Right.
ultimately, it's not going to abuse you. It's not going to support 25-year generational tiffs.
Right.
where it allows businesses to come in and not pay 1 cent of taxes for
25-year debt. No.
That's right. That's two generations of
Right.
not giving you cops, not giving you teachers, not giving you anything, and the business gets profits and you get nothing for supports and programs. And that is not, if I'm there, that's not what it's going to be. And it ain't that. That's not what the Opportunity Zone is, and not what it is. And so how did I get there? It was because of the ability to be able to speak, read, write, have the support of both businesses, legislators, and the people from the ground level, the love and the support and the admiration. But it took practicing small, write legislation at a local level, then write it at a state level, then write it at a national level. And I've done that in the Obama administration with education, and I've done that in the economic arena beyond the Obama administration. So, and I'm looking forward to doing some stuff with the Biden administration. They reached out as well to ask me if I would help partner, because they're cutting edge on making sure that the difference is seen, like in the position, looking different, sounding different, but also they have the spirit of wanting to bridge, because they know that we're divided. So this is going to be an interesting next 4 years, knowing that the administration wants to bridge the gap,
bring
to not
people together.
That's right, to not lose the whole nation.
So Dr. McCoy, humanitarian, I should add to your illustrious title. So it says that you have created homeless shelters, grocery food hubs, school-based health clinics for medical, dental, vision, mental health care for all students, and the first child-parent interaction therapy in Missouri schools.
That's true. That's true. So again, I stand on the shoulders of great people. And so I want to say first that everything that was read there, while it's true, I was not the first. There were homeless shelters built by other people, and I looked at it and modeled it and said, we need this right here.
Yes, sir.
There was grocery store hubs in other states and cities, and Fresh Time said, let's partner with you, Dr. McCoy, because you're doing stuff for the community. Let's bring that right here in Jennings. So Fresh Time provides foods. The St. Louis Area Food Bank is a strong partner. The Operation Food Search, I was on their board for a quick minute, but they're a strong partner. And all of them have said, this is the best practice and it's needed for your people. There's 1 out of 5 people that are hungry. How do we solve that? Make a grocery store be present in your schools.
Yes.
And then kids will come to school to eat. Parents will come to school to get some free food. And then everybody's going to be involved because they want some food. And they want a place to stay. Build hope houses, so make sure that every kid has a place to rest their head. But not just build hope houses, have the student. I'm pleased that we can say our student helped build the hope house, and that we made Hope House number 2 was built and repaired by students. In our construction class that could have gotten $25 an hour at Neihaus and Alberici and did go there afterwards, but they got their training by rebuilding a condemned house in their neighborhood. So when they walk down the street, they're like, don't mess with that house. My sweat built that house. And this is a 16-year-old saying that, not a 30-year-old. Right. So now you don't see trash on the street because that's the ground that I paved, sidewalk to get up there. That's the beloved community. So yes, you can say that I led doing that, but it was we. It's not me, it's we. And we became the first we school district in the state of Missouri, which, that's an authentic thing across the nation. We schools really means that you're committed to the philosophy of Ubuntu, where we will make things better than it was before. The students and parents will identify the top 5 worst things, and then you start tackling it. Homelessness is bad. All right, let's build hope houses. We need more food. All right, let's build 2 grocery store hubs. We need more medical support. All right, let's get we got the only dentistry clinic where kids get all dentistry work done. We have 2 school-based clinics for pre-K through 12th grade where they get eye care, free glasses, free dental, free vision, free mental health, therapists, as well as a psychiatrist. So that's how we got into the child-parent interaction therapy. It's a really great truth. It's not a story. I don't even call things stories. This is a really great truth.
Yes, sir.
The truth is, a young lady named Ariana died on the 16th day of school. She was a 5th grader, kindergartner, and she attended school perfectly for the first 16 days. But on that fateful Wednesday, she went home and her mom's boyfriend physically assaulted her, and she died from internal bleeding, and her 4-year-old sister was hospitalized, but she's well. And Ariana, when she died on the 16th day of school, and I had just visited her class and sung You Are My Sunshine, with this kindergarten so we can learn how to write and read and sing and have fun.
Yes, sir.
And she didn't come back. I said, every time I have a student die, we make sure that we do something dedicated towards that child to continue the legacy and have something bad never happen again under our watch, or to have something good always happen again. Child-parent interaction therapy is that, in honor of Ariana Milton, where we said we will make sure that we pay parents $400 per kid to sit down with a psychiatrist and go through, how do you love your child in a way that's productive? How do you put boundaries in your house in a way that's safe? How do you reestablish boundaries if you have a new man or a new woman entering this household? How do you have child-parent interaction? Then we brought it to our teachers, teacher-child interactions, because not all teachers have the internal psychological reservoir to always give what may be needed, because they're facing trauma. They're secondary recipients of trauma. And so now, as that, you want to teach the teacher what triggers are there. Don't go there, because you're going to have some issues with the parent and the child and have a horrible relationship. Or do go there and lean in here so you can establish boundaries and bonding between you and the child. That is what child-parent interaction therapy is. It's more powerful than a pill.
It's wonderful.
It's more powerful than a pill.
Yes, sir.
The data shows, with Dr. Joan Luby, who created the method here regionally, a world-renowned psychiatrist from Washington University who created the method, it showed that it's more powerful than Ritalin, Adderall for the child and the adult. It eliminates the issues and has no side effects.
Yes, sir.
So that's what that is, and we're proud to be the first in Missouri to do it, the fourth in the third in the nation to do it. And so we're going to expand it. This isn't all for us. It's to be expanded.
Some other accolades: Harvard's Pathway to Prosperity. And you recently retired from the position at the Jennings School District.
I did announce it, and I officially take my leave on July 1st is my first day that I will no longer be the superintendent. I would then be the superintendent emeritus, meaning retired, but still having a place in the system. But I announced, and let me be fully forthcoming here. This is something I've been planning for 20 years, at least. And I communicated 2 years before now to the board that this will be the year and the date. Because I'm 43, and I'm going to be free at 43 to do more of the mission. So I'm only retiring from the position, but not the mission of equity. And that means it's what love looks like in public amongst strangers. It means meeting the needs at the speed of the needs. Sometimes, and this is what I teach people at the graduate classes and all of us, many of us are capable, talented, beautiful, and boundless. We seek that job and we get the job, and we're like, we thought it was going to be better, but you still feel bounded instead of being boundless. It's because there is no one position that can contain all of your greatness. There is not that. So don't trick yourself into thinking that. That's why since 2006, I've had an LLC. I've had a nonprofit 501c3 while I was working in the system in Rockwood, because the position of leader and even CEO still bounds you, because you got somebody to answer to. So you need to be an LLC plus a 501c3 plus a CEO plus your own entrepreneur. You need that, and even that won't give you your whole essence of your boundless spirit. And so when I say I'm retiring from the position and not the mission, I'm retiring from the role, but not my goals.
Yes, sir. So, SAGES sever the achievement gap in the education of students. Also, sever attainment gaps existing in society.
Yes.
What the acronym? What gave birth to it? What gave the reality to SAGES?
Man, I grew up in Jennings and on 20th Street. As the people in the hood call it, the Dub.
Right.
That's where I grew up. And for a rose to grow through the cracks of concrete, to use Tupac's analogy that he wrote as a 16-year-old, that's a required read in New York for all juniors. Because I'm dropping knowledge. He didn't just rap it to those who want to be rapper. He wrote it first as a student from a prep school and then started rapping it.
Right.
That's my story too. And so those who've gone through the most have the most to share, because he or she who learns has suffered. See, those who have suffered,
Yes,
they
sir.
have
They
learned. And those are your sages. They know something about suffering, living. Even what we saw yesterday occurring at the Capitol with some people who were frustrated, it looks different from those who may have not suffered for those who have suffered. It is different for those who are constant sufferers. Like when you compare, a black woman drives a car with a child to approach the hill and gets murdered before she even gets to the concrete pole. That's he or she who learns must suffer.
Yes, sir.
So we have something to teach America now during COVID while more people are suffering. I tell people, welcome home. That's what I tell people, welcome home during COVID, because I've always been someone where people look at me like they want to walk 6 feet away from me or 20 feet away and don't get too close. I've always been subject to losing a job or position by virtue of pigmentation. And now 20 million people have lost their job during the COVID. I've always had to worry about my health by virtue of when I go, where I go, and do what I do. Because that's the plight of people who look like me, creative veterans of suffering. And so sages means that those who have suffered know something. So listen to them, because they got some sagely advice and wisdom. But it also means you better sever or close this gap in the learning. Close this gap in what you are able to attain. Sever the attainment gaps that exist in society. Cut it off. Cut off what one can attain and what one can't. We need to have less have-nots, have more people who have that used to have not. That's what equity means too. Giving to those according to the level of need. So Sages is a two-pronged pun. And it's a nonprofit and an LLC where I literally will go to institutions like Commerce Bank or St. Louis Police Department and teach diversity, inclusion, and equity so that we can cut off the gaps between how a business or law enforcement treats community members. We can cut off, and I don't call it DEI. I call it DIE, diversity, inclusion, and equity, because if you don't do it, you or your company or your business or your community will die. DIE.
Yes, sir. Dr. McCoy.
Yes, sir.
Do teachers get paid enough?
Good question. I believe that teachers always should and could get paid more. And I believe that when teachers choose to be courageous and put their name on their stuff and then put it out there in a web-based market, they can get paid through their LLC more than their government job will pay them. But the answer is teachers and what they do. We all know during COVID, when your child couldn't go to a school, you were missing that teacher. So everybody's like, I wish I could just give you a paycheck to take my child after 6 months of being in there and staying in the house. So people had the appreciation, but the deal is this. An athlete won't get paid as much as they're worth if they don't demand their worth.
Right.
That's the deal of some people like Scottie Pippen or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Scottie Pippen, he made what we know is 7 figures, but like $2 million for tons of years with 6 rings because of the issue of value. Teachers need to exercise their power to assert their fiscal value, both in the system and out of the system. Now, that's not just talk. In Jennings, our teachers are the 5th highest paid teachers in the region because we know they have value, and that's the way. So they're paid more than all the other teachers in our region except 5 other districts. And so that's because we know that they're valuable and we pay them their worth. Other systems need to smarten up like that, and we make sure we take care of ours so they don't leave, because our teachers aren't leaving either.
Okay. All right. Desegregation.
Yeah. It's a trick bag. When the brightest and the best leaves your home, then you got a Swiss cheese block at home.
Right.
Because when the best and brightest couldn't go outside, you had a doctor, lawyer, plumber, street sweeper, and stay-at-home mom, and an unemployed dad all on one street, and we all helped each other out. But when your best and brightest can leave, it makes Swiss cheese. Now, I think it's good for the individual, but it's a challenge for the collective whole of the community, because what is left? And that's the question. But I do believe that everyone should have the right to go wherever they want to go and achieve and live wherever they want to live and need to live. So I'm a supporter of the liberty of people to do so, and not making you feel guilty for doing so at all. But you also need to do what I have done, even though I'm not a DSEG product. I didn't get into Lafayette from being DSEG. I started working at 14 at the McDonald's, saying that I was 16, and we rented a house in Ellisville. That's how I got to Lafayette. I didn't qualify for it, to be honest. Even though you feel out there living on the circle in Jennings, didn't qualify because I wasn't in the city all the way. But the point is, if you do leave, never forget where you came from.
Never.
Always go back. Always give back. That's how I came back to Jennings. I was doing stuff nationwide in Newport Beach and Irvine. And I was straight, handling business on top of our goals, helping with equity across the nation. And I get a call from Reverend Austin while I'm driving on the 405 freeway from LA going back to Irvine. And he had just left the barbershop in Jennings. And they were looking for a superintendent. And someone said, you need to call Dr. McCoy because I think he would come back home. Reverend Austin, who was the board president of Jennings at that time, called me and said, hey, we are interested in you. I said, do all 7 of you feel that way? And he says, yes, we do. And I said, well, home has made me who I am.
Yes, sir.
So I must say yes to come back to home if this is what you really want. And the rest is history. I came back and all 7 was like, yeah, do your thing. Do what you know you need to do to help us be as great as we can be. And that's how Jennings went from being at the level that had just gotten out of provisional to full accreditation based off of a lot of great work done mostly before I got there. And then when I got there, we got to see that and announced it officially when my first semester as leader. And then my goal was to take it from 70% to 90 to 100% success. And that's what we've done while I've been there. 90.1% on the APR, that's the A, and then 100% for graduation. So that's the same as Clayton, Rockwood, Parkway, and that's equity. You want to see where education looks excellence, you can go to Parkway, you can go to Rockwood, and it may be for most kids, and it may not be for some kids that are black. You can go to Jennings, and it's the best you can get in this state for people that look like me and you. We're subset, super
Yes,
subset.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Private schools.
Oh, yeah. See, this is the deal. I am pro-excellence. So let me just say it all out. And this was part of the issue of me knowing where I stand versus others. Power goes to the people.
Yes, sir.
So if you can get to a private school, go to a private school. I'm pro-private school. I'm pro-charter school. I'm pro-homeschool. And I'm pro-public school as a sitting public school superintendent. I'm pro-excellence. But I'm also pro-shutting you down if you aren't excellent. So if a parent is negligent to the duties of their child should be taken away from them and given to someone who's not going to be negligent. If a public school is negligent and has been unaccredited provisionally for 10, 20 years, it should be changed, turned around, and then shut down if it's not good and not going to be good for a generation. I mean, you go to school from kindergarten to 12th grade, that's 13 years, but your school's been provisional or unaccredited for 20 years?
Yeah,
that's a waste
bad.
of your taxpayer dollars.
Bad.
So go wherever you can go. That's good. Excellence. I'm pro-excellence. If you can go to a private school and it's free for you because you got a scholarship or you can afford it, if it's excellence, then you deserve it. And so I'm pro-excellence. And that, not to be confused by pro-choice. I don't do choice.
Yes,
I don't do choice for choice sake. I do choice for the people's sake. Power to the people. You choose. That's why you got the dollar. So you can choose what to do with the dollar. That's why you pay the taxes. So you can choose what quality you get. And everything that's open should be excellent. If it's not excellent, it needs to change.
Now, you did speak on charter. You say you're pro-charter.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we do see an issue that's coming up now with the potential opening of a charter school.
That's right.
If you were in that position, how would you try to get the people to become in favor of starting or allowing that charter school to come about?
Let me be clear as always. I'm not pro-charter as much as I'm pro-excellence. So that means that if you are not about excellence, then shut it down. Charter, effort, or anything. So in that issue, for me, the method may be okay, like on a scale of A to F, it may be a C. The method, like the what, charter school, what is a C? Average. It's been done everywhere before in the city and in other states, so it's average. But so what you do, it looks average, the what. But the how it was done was an F. See, when you come and try to trick me, or you come and try to show me some data and then say this is everything and it ain't everything and it ain't even right.
Yes, sir.
That sounds like what Englanders did when they came to Americans, to Indians, and said, yeah, we got something for you. And then all of a sudden, oh, we being killed?
It's the trick bag.
It's the trick bag. So the what is one thing, but the how, if you come at me wrong, you got me messed up. If you come at me with me at the table from the start and I got the power to make the what right, then the how it was done was the right way. You included the community from the start. The voice was there. The intention was pure. So how would I do it? From the start when I arrive, I will say, I have no agendas. I'm excellent at what I do, and if we come up with what we want to do, it's going to be the best.
Yes,
that's what I did in Jennings. I didn't come to Jennings and say, I know what to do from Irvine, and it worked there, so let's force it here. No, I came and I didn't bring one Irvine partner to Jennings, because I said, this is home. Home, what y'all want to do? And whatever's mine is yours if you want it. And if you don't want it, they need to stay away. I haven't done one Fab Lab in the state of Missouri, even though I've been asked to do it at Mizzou, S&T, and others. Why? Because it's like, we're home. If you ask, you can receive. But if that's not what you want, then this is how we do it. I'm going to give you what you want. Equity is what love looks like in public among strangers, meeting your need at the speed of your need. So that's how I do it. And that shows true intention. But when you're already hired with an agenda by somebody who's telling you what to do, that helped you to get to the seat, then you're just another puppet. You're not free at 43, for sure. You may be like going to see the door at 44 because people going to say, I ain't sending my kids. So now you got a school with no kids, and that's going to fail whether it's charter or public or private. You can't have a building and no customers and survive.
Yes, sir. So, Dr. McCoy, I have a child at home. My child is not really adjusting to homeschooling because of the COVID regulations.
Mm-hmm.
They're not interested. They're not doing their homework. They're not motivated to go online. They feel detached from their friends and their classmates that they're so used to being around. How do I talk to my child to get them back focused, to get them back on the path to excellence?
That's a beautiful question. That's where the rubber meets the road, because there are thousands, if not millions, of children out of the 60 million in public schools and the 10 million in private schools in the country that are facing that very thing. I'm teaching this very thing and doing this very thing in various places, including a country called Dubai. Asked me the same question for 300,000 kids, and I'm teaching them. And I'm going to tell you what I'm getting paid to tell Dubai in another country, which is also supporting Kenya and also supporting other countries that I know is listening because you have that broad of a membership. The first answer is, as the parent, you have to bond and love that child and say, hey, I'm looking at you, and you come from me, and we expect greatness from each other.
Yes, sir.
That's number one.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
care if you're a street sweeper. I don't care if you just drawing. It's going to be great because you're great, and I love you. And if you're not great yet, our love is going to make each other greater. You're going to make me greater, I'm going to make you greater. But what I see right now is not as great as I know that we are. Then you ask the question. You don't tell them be great. You say why and how can we be better? Why is it not great? And if that child starts to say things like, because I'm depressed, all my friends are gone, or I have anxiety because I don't know what's going to happen to me. Somebody might come in my house and kill me, or I might die if I go out from COVID. Then you have to define the problem so you can confine the problem.
Yes, sir.
So the question why helps to define it. Why are you lethargic, sleeping all the time, or on YouTube to 2 o'clock in the morning and then sleep where you should be logged in? Why? Well, because I really don't care. It's not related to me. Okay, now, depending on what the answer is, the kid isn't doing that work because they don't see themselves in the work. If you told the kid, no matter what the work was, that this work is really you working on you, so that instead of learning how to count 1, 2, 3, you're teaching the child what your address is for a kindergartner, what your zip code is, that this zip code is connected to a geographic region. This area code gets you to the same 7 digits with a different area code, 314 versus 618 versus 636. It gets you to either St. Louis City or Illinois or somewhere in St. Charles or West County. 314, 613, 618 or 636. That will help teach me why to count 1, 2, 3. So we have to, parents and teachers, focus on what counts, not just the count. Not 1, 2, 3s, but you and me is what counts. So in every homework assignment, I'm telling my teachers to make sure that the child sees themselves in it.
Yes, sir.
That you, when you're on the screen, that you focus on the safety of the child. Like if the teacher's teaching virtually and they see a kid on screen and you hear a bunch of noise in the background, or you see the kids in the pajamas and it's like 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, it's like, no, that's not safe. You haven't even got out of your pajamas. Where's the routine, the rules, you haven't brushed your teeth. That matters more than let's do the Pythagorean theorem. And if the teacher's talking about, oh, I see 6 of us are in clothes, but 3 of us have pajamas on, why and what? Now you're a community. And that's what that parent has to be able to do. And it's unfortunately unfair that a parent has to be the worker and the teacher if you are homeschooling. But I want to teach you parents, and I know there are many mothers that are listening even to this. There's a difference between homeschooling and schooling at home.
Yes, sir.
Homeschooling is when you are the boss of what you teach, when you teach, where you teach, and how you teach it. Nobody, not the state, not anybody can tell you what to teach, when to teach, where to teach, and how to teach. And you just need to record that you teached. And that's homeschooling. By law, you have a right to not be in a system and to educate your child on what counts as knowledge, when, where, and how. That's homeschooling. I've done it myself with my own child when I didn't trust the system and knew the system was going to teach him about everybody but my child's black self. I said, we're going to do this for ourselves and teach you what this really is about.
Yes,
we didn't
sir.
just come as slaves. We were leaders before people were even around.
Yes, sir.
But schooling at home is what the majority of people are doing. That means that their child is at home. They have a school computer. They have a school hotspot for connectivity. They have a school curriculum. And that child is physically at home supposing to do all this stuff that the school said to do. When you're in that situation, you have a right to demand more from the school. You have a right to first talk to your kid and see what they want and need to get themselves more into what they're doing. And then call somebody for help, the counselor, the principal. Start with power. Somebody with power is the principal usually. And say, all right. And then that principal who has power says, okay, I got staff that can help with this. I got a social worker. I got a counselor. I got some teachers that maybe be more strong in this area versus what this teacher's doing. And say, okay, I need help because this ain't working. Ultimately, get your child engaged physically. That means like have them do service projects, be it feeding people, pantry work, giving out things, food, getting out we did this for the census polling. We had students passing out census pollers, studying why it matters, telling adults this matters because if you don't do the census, then we get $200 less, $400 less for you. And
Yes,
that
sir.
matters to me because I need good schools. So that's education. And it's real. And it's like action. Kids want action. Get them out of the house to do some action. Because the issue with COVID is that you can march and protest and not everybody died. We saw that. We had the most people with feet on the street out of all the history of protests, and it wasn't any kind of big groundswell of COVID because they were marching with distance outside with masks. You can do schools that way. The data has shown from the CDC and others. I was just part of a study right here with Jason Newland showing that schools are safer than not having kids in school as it pertains to learning how to live during COVID and be safe. Because schools will teach you, wear your mask, stay away, 6 feet away, wash your hands 5 times, make sure that you go in and out every 15 minutes, don't stay in a closed space. That's education.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, that's what you got to do. Break it down, confine it, confine it, see your child in it, give them empowerment, give them a sense of purpose so they can get action oriented.
And Dr. McCoy, my last question, and I want to thank you for your knowledge and your expertise and everything that you have done. But my last question is, what bit of information can you give a young child, someone that may be thinking of getting into education as their career field? What bit of information can you give them as a motivator?
The first thing I would say to motivate a child, an adult, a student, somebody just learning or wanting to change career is this. There are people like myself that want to help you. There are boundless programs, one that's going to be launched in the next month that I'm a leader of. And when you see what you like and what you want to be, then talk to the person. Reach out to me directly. Astrum U is the name of a program that's going to be on a phone that is able to help you see what track you want to be.
How do you spell that, Astrum?
Astrum stands for the stars because we're working on everybody being a star. It's Latin. ASTRUM. Astrum U. U is for university. And it's going to tell you who goes where to get what. Best education, best job, best career and life pathway. That's being launched in just a month or so. Working on it now. What you can Google immediately if you want to go into a career field like education or firefighter or any of that is St. Louis Works. STL.WORKS. STL.works. That site is already up, and I'm the leader of that, having the support of the Regional Business Council and members of Greater STL Inc. who want to give opportunities to high schoolers, middle schoolers, and of course adult college students and adults to have real living wage jobs. I'm championing that, the STL Works initiative. Google it, STL.works, and you'll see career pathways. You'll see a little assessment that says, what are you interested in? What do you like? Just like I said here.
STL.works?
Yes, sir. STL.works.
Is that .works.com or?
It'll come straight up. It is a .com, but you don't need to do that. If you just type www, or if you just type STL.works, it'll come up without this. It's HTTP //STL.works, and you don't even have to need the HTTP.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so that's up and going. If you want to be anything, educator, superintendent, or other, another thing that I'm pleased to share is that St. Louis University just named me the first distinguished educator of SLU in the College of Education. And I'll be pleased to work with Gary, the dean, Gary Ritter, on making sure that we provide instruction on how to be a great superintendent and a champion for equity and a champion for excellence. That we work on helping quality charter schools be created with the voice of the people when they ask for it. That we work on quality public schools because that already is there. Let's get it better. And so as the distinguished fellow of SLU over the College of Education, working with Dean Ritter, I'm pleased to be working hands-on to help mentor young people of color, young women for positions of leadership. So what I'm telling you is reach out. And if you believe it and you are determined, then you can achieve it. Don't give up. But I'm going to tell you, there is no some struggle. But we're not struggling for nothing. We're struggling for success. We're struggling for our soul. And that's what we're going to do, brother. We're going to make that struggle worth it.
Hey, real STL News, we had a treat today. The illustrious Dr. R. McCoy. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in, real STL News listeners. Please share this particular positive live. We need this information sent out. We probably need to parse his words and see everything he said and how we can dissect it and how we can get this implemented for our children. And some positive things said. We need to see people like this in the community because this is a doctor. You know, you probably have a better chance at being a doctor versus a rapper or a football player.
That's right.
You know, Dr. Art McCoy is someone that's tangible that you can see, that you can get in touch with. Like he said, he is available for those who want to get in touch with him if you need mentorship for yourself or for your children. Please like the Real STL News page. Once again, share this live. This is your brother Charles Abdul-Wali. Thank you once again, Dr. Art McCoy.
Thank you, brother.
I do have to go. We do have one of our members planning to do a live in just a moment, so stay with Real STL News as we go live. As soon as this one goes off, please like, share, tag your friends and family in this video to help share the positive awareness of everything that's going on in St. Louis and the entire metropolitan area. Once again, signing out with Dr. Art McCoy. Real STL News for the community, because we are the community. Peace.